You know, before we get to this episode of TIE Fighter Renegades, yes, all new, baby. Me and Rob just tearing it up. I have a little bit of an apology to make because on my end, not on Rob's end, he sounds glorious. On my end, I don't know if the internet on Ice Planet Zero here somehow just the inner tubes just can't transmit enough. Whatever it was, the audio on my end came through pretty rough. You're going to hear when you get into this episode, but we had such a great conversation. I don't want to let it go just because my audio fucked up, frankly. You're going to hear some pops. I mean, here and there, you're going to hear where it sounds like my audio is cutting out. I am going to look into a solution for this overall. I think a lot of, well, we all know the challenges that a lot of video conferencing software is having. Take your pick. We do not use Zoom for this. Make no mistake. Thank you, Sovryn Tech. But regardless, just want to make you aware of it as you listen to it. There might, you know, I edit it quite a bit, so you shouldn't run into too many issues of flow. But there might be a point where a sentence seems to just like end out of nowhere. Well, I made this as complete as possible, and there's incredible conversations to be had. We do talk about Star Wars, opening up a little bit of Star Wars news. Then we get into a conversation around alternatives back in the 80s for the character of none other than Captain Jean-Luc Picard, which is pretty interesting. And then we get into a whole lot of Dune talk, and I assure you that is well worth it to get in on that, because that might be the movie event of 2020 that is actually still going to happen, unlike so many others. So give it a listen, but just want to make you aware up front. Yes, fully aware of the audio issues, and we are going to do our best to resolve those in the future. So, okay, that's it for me here at the opening. Let's go to the real fun, which is when me and Rob are talking trash, baby. Woo, let's do it.
It's TIE Fighter Renegades, a Star Wars podcast.
It is time for TIE Fighter Renegades. And yes, folks, we are still rocking that new format, which means that we are going to talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about, quite frankly. And I mean, we'll still get that Star Wars in. And when I say we, you know what that means. It's not just me. It's also Rob Freebeard. Man, welcome back to TIE Fighter Renegades.
Woo! Yeah.
Yeah. And we have some words to share this.
Oh, do we ever?
Because boy, as there has been news, we'll put it that way. So, but we'll see where things go, and we certainly have some subjects we want to get into. In fact, one that Rob we're basically calling an audible on, because Rob brought it to my attention just minutes before we started recording, and I looked at it, I was like, wow, that is amazing. But we'll get into that. So we're actually going to talk a little Star Trek as well, and then just to the appetite, we are going to be talking about a favorite subject of Rob's and mine, that being Dune, certainly one of our top franchises. But anyway, well, why don't we go ahead, Rob, and start talking about, well, the thing I had to open it up, getting into a little bit of Star Wars news. We didn't get into this in previous episodes, even though I don't even know how to describe it. Like it was, I don't know. It wasn't a making special. It was kind of a making special. It was sort of a trailer. I think Disney is probably trying to trailblaze here, to pioneer here with this concept. But we had heard for about a year, we had heard about a thing called Project Luminous for Star Wars. And everybody had different ideas of what this is. They thought, oh, is this the Knights of the Old Republic movie? Which who the fuck knows what's happening with that? Is it this? Nobody exactly knew. And I mean, we had some idea that we figured it was going to take place in the Old Republic, or at least in the further back in history than we're used to with Disney's canon of Star Wars anyway. And that's basically what it ended up being. They had this announcement trailer. I'll call it that for lack of a better phrase, because I don't know. I forget how many minutes it went. Did you catch this, Rob? Did you see it?
Yeah. I mean, I did catch it. Wasn't a whole lot to it, but I mean, it's
yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, it wasn't actually. I'll be honest with you. I was expecting more from all that I'd heard about with Project Luminous. So, right. I mean, it was a little disappointment on that level, and that we had heard that it was going to be this huge transmedia project, and I had in my mind Shadows of the Empire, because that's the last time really that Star Wars did that kind of thing and did it really well. But it seems like we're really just like transmedia to Disney is just comics and books. So it doesn't sound like we're getting a game. It doesn't sound like we're going to get a soundtrack. It doesn't sound like we're going to get any kind of show or anything.
Yeah, so they're labeling it officially Star Wars The High Republic, which I thought maybe The High Republic was, some kind of nickname for Disney, because it seems like that's it seems like they're high all the time these days. I don't know, but anyway, and they've been trying to become their own state for decades.
They practically are. I mean, they issue their own money.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're totally right about that. Yeah, I mean, they are.
If you look at the Disneyland and Disney World, they practically are little micronations.
Yeah. I mean, to the point that they have, I think, like the airspace over Disney is actually registered to them, which is that doesn't happen often outside of military bases. So, to have like almost a restricted airspace for just a company like that just doesn't occur. But Disney, well, they can pull that off.
And I'm sure that's because of the fireworks and whatnot that they put on these shows every single night.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's plenty of reasons. And I think also they like to control what you see of their, new parks that they might be building or new attractions. And so,
yeah. Not that it stopped anybody from flying drones over the Disney parks when they were building the Star Wars lands.
Yeah. No, there's no way you can stop that now.
No.
I mean, they're just kidding themselves if they even want to try. I mean, that's like how they try to shut down, like at Comic-Con, they try to shut down people's phones, in varying rooms and keeping you from recording the exclusive trailer and all that. Yeah. Kiss my ass. People are going to see it anyway. I mean, you're just enticing them. I mean,
well, all they were doing was cutting off the internet connection, so people would record it onto their phone and then upload it when they leave the theater.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, and it's not that this isn't possible. It is. I've covered these stories on Sovryn Tech where literally, if whatever authoritative body wants to shut down your smartphone. I mean, that exists. It's not conspiracy. I mean, anyway, we don't have to go down that road, but they could just completely shut down their phone if they wanted to. I think if they did, they'd get a lot different reaction than what they'd expect, because people would suddenly be like, holy fuck, this can happen, but shutting down the internet, I guess that's slightly palatable. But anyway, we don't need to get lost on that. So the High Republic, I guess we'll get back into it. Transmedia, agreed. I was thinking this is going to be very Shadows of the Empire as well. Frankly, it might end up being that still. Like maybe these books will just sell so goddamn well, and these comic books will just sell so well that they'll say, okay, there's interest here, let's make a movie. Or, okay, there's interest here, let's make a video game, and so on. I could imagine that. I mean, people got to remember, like you brought up, Rob, Shadows of the Empire in the 90s had literally everything except a movie, but it had everything else: video game, comic book, novel, art book, making special book. I mean, like everything except for an actual movie. The soundtrack, the whole thing, it had the soundtrack.
And that was the exciting thing about it, is that you got all this stuff as, at one time.
Toy line even.
And that's what I don't like about this, is like the fact that they are playing it safe is like, okay, let's dip our toes in this transmedia thing just a tad and see how we like it. You've got the money, have some confidence. I think that's I think a huge problem with Disney Star Wars is like they just don't have confidence in what they're selling. And so they're not really willing to take a risk on any of it.
Well, it's weird. And you raise a great point here that I wasn't even necessarily thinking about, because they'll come out with that dumb ass. This is like when Disney first bought Star Wars. They came out with that, that EDM album.
Oh,
Star Wars themes.
Right. Yeah.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
This was on 3-4 years ago, maybe, or 5 years ago. I don't know, however long ago it was. And I was like,
I listened to it once, and that's probably it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it on Plex, sure, but like, I never touch it. Like, who the hell wanted that? Who even asked for that? I mean, the argument could be made though. It's like, well, that's nice that Disney's being a little experimental anyway. But boy, you know, if they're willing to publish that, why the fuck won't they publish a soundtrack for this? Because that could be really cool, you know, to have. I mean, because I did that. Like, I listened to the Joel McNeely score of Shadows of the Empire while I was reading the book, or when I was reading the comic books, and it was a cool experience. What a shame to not have that with this. I mean, we are getting 3 books. One of them is by Claudia Gray, so that's probably going to be a winner, wouldn't you say, Rob?
Yeah. She's a solid writer no matter what she's working on.
Yeah. We're going to get a couple comic book series. The thing that's weird to me, I still don't understand this relationship with IDW, because one of the comic books is going to be published through Marvel, and then you're going to get High Republic Adventures, which I'm guessing is going to be like the kiddie version, kind of like Star Wars Adventures is right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the part that I don't like about this is that's the part that's being worked on by Daniel Jose Older, who I thought his book Last Shot was actually really good. Like, I liked that with the Ewok hacker or slicer and everything. I don't know, that seems to be misplaced writing talent, but okay. Yeah. So there is going to be who is it? Charles Soule. Have we had any books by Charles Soule? That name doesn't ring a bell in Star Wars.
It's not with Star Wars. The name sounds familiar, but I don't think we've had anything from him in Star Wars.
Okay. Well, this is all kicking off late August. So it's the thing for 2020. I mean, kudos to Disney for having at least what they're treating as a major project at a time when the movie theater business is basically dead. And even like the movie production
I'm totally wrong. He was the writer on the Lando comic.
Oh, that's going to be great then. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just say my excitement level just
me too.
Oh, so that's why we recognize the name, because for longtime listeners of TIE Fighter Renegades, you know, Rob and I have regularly said in Disney's new canon, the Lando comic was top marks. I mean,
he's worked on quite a few things here. Poe Dameron too, which is another solid series.
Yeah, we were also very complimentary towards that. I mean, the Lando comic was probably the best thing in the new canon to date. Well, that's great. Okay, well they got the right guy for that. I can't believe I like blipped on his name.
Yeah.
Regardless, all right. Well, so there's some good names here involved. Justina Ireland. I know she did something else, but I can't think of what it is. Kavan Scott. I mean, there's people involved. And again, I really could see that this could turn into games and movies if these end up selling past a certain threshold, whatever that arbitrarily happens to be for Disney. But I mean, now granted, I know the excitement went up a little bit when we found out who exactly Charles Soule was, and we won't forget that name again in the near future. But Rob, I mean, how are you feeling about this? This is the event of 2020 for Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. My attitude may change when these, books and comics finally come out, but I'm still feeling the franchise fatigue. I'm just really not that excited. And I wish I was, because for a long time, I've been part of the, group of people who have been saying, hey, do Old Republic stuff. And while this isn't quite Old Republic, it's certainly a lot closer to it than anything that we've gotten from Disney to date.
Yeah. I mean, and we've brought up many times, like how well done the Tales of the Jedi comic book series was back in the 90s. Of course, the Knights of the Old Republic games are, so renowned. I hear you on the franchise fatigue. I feel the same thing where I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I think I was hoping to hear, and we were supposed to get an announcement in 2020. I understand why we're not, probably. We were supposed to get an announcement of what the next movie was going to be. I was hoping it would be a High Republic movie because, I mean, the nice thing is if this is an era where we don't know much about anything, there's no expectations. And so we can kind of go into it like, all right, let's see what they're going to do here. And it could be interesting. But yeah, I don't really feel the excitement at all, you know, and I want to, but I can't.
And I don't think we're going to hear anything about the movie until Celebration, if that's still going to happen this year. I mean, I have tickets already, you know, bought and paid for, and still no word on whether or not that's actually going to happen this year.
Right. And when does that normally happen?
I think it's August.
August, yeah. Yeah, shame, because I mean, with High Republic coming out at that time, it would have been, you know, well, obviously we all know why these things are getting shut down, but you know, that would have been interesting to have that. I don't know. That's where they could have done something really cool, where they could have had a whole setup, you know, at Celebration, where you're basically entering like a city of, you know, the High Republic at that time. And that could have been really cool. But how do you feel about it? Did you see the artwork for, what do they call them? The Nil, like these space Vikings?
Yeah, that's the other thing. I was like, I mean, it's okay, but here again, not that excited about it. They just seem like any other band of, you know, outlaws in the Star Wars universe. So hopefully there's going to be something to them that's a little more compelling than what we're seeing so far.
Yeah, I don't like the name. But I mean, that's just a personal point for me. Like, because I don't like nihilism being used in the pejorative, because nihilism has more than one meaning. Right. And some of those meanings are actually, or at least one of them I can think of is a very good one in my opinion.
And it's not even original in terms of Star Wars, because of course you had Darth Nihilus in Knights of the Republic 2. Right.
Well, that might be, so maybe, I mean, I know that's old canon, but that could point at perhaps some connection there with the Sith, which, I mean, if they're going to go there, okay, fine. You know, I'll take it. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm not terribly excited about this. It's happening. We'll see. If I was Disney, I mean, I agree with them on doubling down on it, on trying to make it a big deal, because I mean, a lot of franchises, you know, it's a miracle if they can even have shit done this year. You know, it's a miracle that Picard, I mean, I'd be just as well if Picard was and I don't mean the actor, I mean the show was a victim of COVID-19 and wasn't able to come out. You know, it'd certainly help with my depression. But and I would I'd love it if Discovery season 3 was also a victim of COVID-19, but because I mean, then, you know, I might be a very happy person right now, but you know, whatever, some of these franchises like squeaked stuff in, right? And in fact, you know, I kind of wonder how many of these franchises are going to use COVID-19 as an excuse for why they suck. I could see that. And I think that's pathetic.
Yeah.
You know,
it was kind of like back in the day in the early aughts where they were using the writer's strike.
Yes.
To explain why. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, we didn't have scripts and whatever. It's like, well, Jodorowsky could make, fucking the high, or what was it, the Holy Mountain or the High Mountain, I forget which one. It's like he can make that without a script. What excuse do you have, you son of a bitch? Oh hell. Anyway, yeah. All right, hold on. So I just mentioned Alejandro Jodorowsky. Hopefully, I'm saying his name right. I mean, obviously, you know, certainly a legendary, if not infamous figure as far as comic books, because it appears that comic books are the only thing that could capture whatever the fuck runs through his mind. You know, we're going to talk about Dune later, right? You saw the documentary about Jodorowsky's Dune.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Like, I get it, you know, but at the same time, like, he's in the documentary, he's talking about this. He's bringing people in, trying to sell them on this Dune movie that he's going to make, and he's just getting them high as soon as they walk in. Like no, before I tell you, here, light up. You know,
I'll be perfectly honest with you. As an interesting as a movie this sounds like it was going to be, I'm kind of glad it didn't happen.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he tells you in the documentary, I mean, like, and he makes the motion even. He's like, I was raping Frank Herbert, but with love. with love.
Yeah, I mean, he is such. I mean, I understand his keyword. I understand his type of brilliance. Okay, and I get that, and I don't want to necessarily take away from that. But he's just a whack now, dude. I mean, if anybody thinks the '84 Dune was fucking weird, man.
Are you aware of like his history, like how he grew up and everything? And
oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some issues.
Yeah,
absolutely. And like it definitely, you can see how it colors his attitudes on things, and some might go as far as call it, problematic, and I would like, yeah, kinda.
Yeah. Well, I bring it up only to validate or to vindicate, I should say, my thought that, boy, I'm glad his movie didn't get made.
Yeah. I think it would have been really cool if his movie got made, if just as long as it wasn't called Dune.
Yeah, right. Yeah, call it the Holy Mountain 2. I don't care, but just don't.
Yeah.
Just don't call it Dune.
Space Mountain.
Yeah. That sounds like a Ric Flair movie. Gonna ride Space Mountain tonight, baby. Anyway, no. Oh man. Yes, but then it could be a Disney film. It'd be perfect, right?
Right.
Space Mountain. Oldest ride, longest line. That's. Oh man. Well, now that we've mentioned Jodorowsky, we can end the show, and we're done. Okay. Anyway, I'm sure he would have made. Now there's a name I would have let loose on the comic books for the High Republic. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, well, just sign me up. I'd buy that.
Yeah. No, you know what? Actually, thinking about it, because I've read a lot of his comic books, and yeah, I'm there.
It was awful. I would this is like so out of left field that like it's got to be better than the bland schlock that Disney's been putting out.
Oh, but it'd be great. Like you could bring in some of those storylines from Dr. Aphra, where like there's the mushroom Jedi or something that
right.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah.
I mean, it's totally Jodorowsky. He'd love it. He'd go crazy. Yeah. The colors alone would. Anyway, it would be pretty good. I wouldn't mind that, actually. Well, anyway, we'll talk more Dune later. So I guess to say, yes, not too much excitement around Star Wars, The High Republic, but, I will say I could be wrong. It might end up being awesome because, for example, like the Galaxy's Edge tie-in material actually ended up being dynamite. Like or some of it anyway, was really, really solid. So, there's a chance that this could be really good, especially with Charles Soule involved and of course Claudia Gray. Right.
Yeah. I'm not like negative against, I'm not like, opposed to this happening. I was just, I was expecting more, and like I said, my franchise fatigue is coloring it to a degree. We'll reevaluate when, these books and comics come out.
Yeah, because I think it'll be worthwhile for us to review because it is, again, the thing happening in Star Wars this year. So, I mean, here, Rob, I mean, we're going to get to a review of season 7 of Clone Wars in a future episode. I mean, how are you? We're almost over. Isn't it almost done? How are you feeling?
I think I haven't been enjoying it as much as I thought I would, to be honest with you, and that makes me kind of sad.
What do you think's behind it? I mean, is it like the production level's high? Like what's?
I don't know. I have this. So I really enjoyed the Bad Batch arc, but I had already seen it, so there wasn't a whole lot of surprise involved with there, because there was only like a couple of small added scenes like with the one with Padme that they added in that was new to me. So I mean that's on me for basically spoiling myself and whatever. But this arc with Ahsoka and on Coruscant, I was expecting it to be, I don't know, just more, and it just hasn't really been all that exciting. I mean, certainly you've had a lot of action in this last episode where they escape from the Pikes on Obadiah, but and it was just really weird how Bo-Katan just kind of shows up at the end and says, "Hey, get on the ship. We're leaving." I have this. See, my dread is that the Siege of Mandalore, which is what I've been looking forward to. I'm sure everybody's looking forward to. Yep. My dread is that it's gonna be a rush job. They spent all this time. Yeah. They spent all this time on Coruscant that they should have been dedicated more of that time towards the Siege of Mandalore. Because I understand it's like there's only like one episode left, or maybe two.
Yeah, I thought one, but yeah.
Yeah, so they're supposed to do the Siege of Mandalore in one episode, yet we had 4 of these episodes on Coruscant. You should have been the other way around.
Yeah, I mean this speaks to a larger issue, and it's an issue that we brought up with Picard as well. I mean, a lot of this like arc writing, people just aren't good at it. I don't know. I mean, and it's not like Clone Wars was bad at it before. They could do it, but yeah, I share, basically, I'll just say I share your sentiment. Like, it hasn't been as exciting. And I don't know if that's because of episode 9, if it's because that has left such a terrible taste in my mouth, that it's like, I just can't get excited about Clone Wars. I don't know. But yeah, I wanted a lot more. I mean, Siege of Mandalore could have been the whole goddamn season. And it would have been solid. So yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway, we will get into a review of that in the future. Once that's finished, which I think would be a good thing, to do it as a whole, because that's how a lot of the writing is now, is everything is, and I'm not complaining about it. You just got to be able to do it right, where, like an entire season is an entire arc, or there's like a whole feeling that you go for with the season. Anyway, I'm sure there's a bigger conversation we could have around that. I can think of some things coming to mind, but we can move on from that unless you got anything else, Rob.
No.
Right on. So, I guess a little more Star Wars. We'll get this in. It's just hit today as of us recording, and that is, I guess I'm getting a little bit of a birthday present, and that is on May 12th, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is getting re-released for various systems, various consoles that had maybe not seen it previously. It'll be coming out for the Switch, which I think that was kind of the big announcement. We mentioned this in previous episodes that it was coming, but we didn't realize how quickly it would be coming out. I mean, I got to imagine doing, re-releasing games right now is just easy money for these game dev houses or whoever owns the licenses. Just to get something out there and make money while everybody's working from home, whatever, fine. But it is going to come out on May 12th. It's supposed to be, the initial comments about it that I read, which was a few weeks ago, was that it was remastered. But you and I, Rob, we both looked at screenshots in these stories, that the announcement stories, and maybe they're not screenshots from the finished product. But it didn't look remastered at all, nor did I see a lot of new features. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, not only that, I'm like subsequent articles that I've seen on it haven't really even mentioned it as a remaster. Right. So I'm just wondering if, somebody just got that mixed up in their head. But yeah, it doesn't look like the graphics have improved at all. Probably other than the fact you'll be playing it at a higher resolution than the original release, at least if you were on consoles. Yeah,
I mean, the part that scares me, I mean, I see 2 possibilities here. There's probably more, but I see at least 2. One is that Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, which has also been ported to consoles recently, I think certainly Jedi Academy has done pretty good money. That's the gist that I'm getting, is that it has done good money on the consoles that it was released on, to the point that they're actually coming out with patches pretty quickly for it. Of course, there's other reasons behind that, because PC players were cracking into multiplayer sessions for Switch. And I think it's hilarious in itself, because I've said for years, like, I did not understand, why are people playing all of these first-person shooters or whatever on consoles when nothing compares to the control scheme of keyboard and mouse. Nothing compares to that. The precision is just a whole other level. And that was the problem that was happening with Jedi Academy, was that basically people who own the PC version of the game were cracking into Switch matches. And you just don't have the same precision of controls on the Nintendo Switch that you do on a PC. And so they're wiping the floor with everybody. I was even playing some multiplayer, and this is definitely one of my top games, and I was getting my ass kicked. And part of me wondered, it's like, I wonder if they were some PC gamers, which, hey, good for you. Like, I don't have an ego to bruise in that sense. I congratulate you for pulling that off. But they've patched that apparently now. Anyway, regardless, they didn't do a remastering really of Jedi Academy or Jedi Outcast, which also came out last year. So maybe they just felt like, well, shit, nobody cares. They buy the game anyway, so we're not going to do a full remastering. Or the other part the other possibility that I don't like, and I'm a little peeved about with a game that I fucking love. I mean, I'm glad it's going to be out there, but I'm worried they might double dip, meaning that a few months ago, GOG released finally Blade Runner for PC, which is a 90s classic. About a month ago, it was announced, and now we're going to, again, that was a few months ago when they first finally released it. There was varying issues with the code of the game, blah, 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 whatever. That's a whole other story. But now they're going to remaster the game and they're going to resell it again. And I'm like, it felt like a double dip.
Yeah. I mean, I've had that complaints somewhat in the past with there's a company called Beamdog that did re-releases of the various Dungeons and Dragons games from the 90s.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate, Planescape, all those great games. And but they didn't really improve much on them. In fact, it's been argued that they introduced more bugs than what they added to it.
Right. I hear that. So I guess that's part of what I'm worried about as well, is that, later this year, they'll re-release Episode 1 Racer again, and it'll be completely remastered. And it's like, oh, what the fuck?
I'll tell you, if they want to do something, what they really should do, and this would make me tickle pink, is if they re-released and ported Racer Revenge to all of the consoles, and especially the PC, which never got it.
Right.
But even if they didn't, if they put Racer Revenge on the Switch, that would be like a reason for me to buy the Switch.
Yeah, I hear that. Because basically that game has only existed on the PlayStation 2. It's one of the reasons I still have a PlayStation 2, because the game is that good.
And that's what I've heard about it. And I never got to play it because I didn't have a PlayStation 2.
Right. I mean, Racer is a great game, so I'm glad it's getting re-released. And I know you'd say the same, Rob. For more people to play it. Maybe that'll end up happening. Yeah, I agree with you. You can play it on like the PS3 or PS4 in the PlayStation shop, but I'm not going there.
That's not enough.
If you're gonna, no, I mean, here's my threshold with consoles, right? If you're going to charge me over $400 for a console, I'm just going to go buy a gaming PC, because then you're getting into gaming PC price range, you know, and Nintendo wins still as a console because they sell for sub 300, and that's.
Especially this late in the lifespan of the current generation of consoles, because we're supposed to be getting PlayStation 5s and a new Xbox, late this year, early next year.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, anyway, that is coming May 12th. I don't know what the price is going to be. I was amazed at how expensive Jedi Academy was. I think they charged, it was $20 or $25 or something like that. I think it was 20. Which I thought that was high because Jedi Outcast was only 10. Anyway, if you really want to spend some money on those games, Limited Run Games is finally putting those out on a physical release, both Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. What is it, April 24th, Rob? Is that when they are?
I believe that was the date, that they're going up for sale.
Yeah,
you won't get the physical copies until much, much later, but yeah.
Right. Still no TIE Fighter.
I think they're just going to save best for last. They're probably going to do the same thing they did here, and they're going to release X-Wing and TIE Fighter at the same time. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind. I mean, they won't do it. Well, I don't know. Okay, because I know Limited Run Games is making for Switch and PS4, not for PC, but for Switch and PS4, they are making dual packs available, physical dual packs of Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy.
Right.
I mean, if there was a dual pack somehow of X-Wing and TIE Fighter, fuck. I mean, put $300 on that thing, and I think it'd be worth the asking price. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an instant buy for me, no matter what.
Yep, same here.
But yeah, I think they know that's the one everybody's been waiting for, and they're saving the best for last.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there are any other Star Wars games that were on that list, that initial list of games that they said they were going to do, because I think we're getting close to the end of that list now. So possibly before the end of the year, we'll see that.
Yeah, because I think they said that like the PC releases specifically is going to be like a series of 8 games, and Outcast and Academy is going to bring them up to 4, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're going to do the rest of the TIE Fighter or the X-Wing series, which TIE Fighter would be a part of, I mean, you've basically run out of games unless you're going to do Knights of the Old Republic or something. I don't know. But, well, anyway, when those come out, I hear you. Day one buy as far as TIE Fighter, for sure. I warned the local bank. I said I'll probably rob them if I have to make sure I get so they're aware, and anyway. And the manager understood. They're like, "Oh, TIE Fighter? Well, of course." In fact, here, take a little more. Buy 2.
Well, did they already do the Rebel Assault games?
Yeah, Rebel Assault. They did put this out, but it was for Sega CD. They did not release the PC version of that, which is odd also because interesting.
I'm looking at the announcement on their website when they, of their lineup of these games that they're going to do, and it says right here, Rebel Assault PC.
Oh, that is weird. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And after that, that's right. The only thing that's left are X-Wing and TIE Fighter.
Yeah, so we got to be getting to the end of that list.
Yeah.
Maybe they're gonna do the Rebel Assault series for PC, and then they'll just do X-Wing and TIE Fighter.
Yeah.
Is Alliance on that list?
Nope. Yeah, they're not doing Alliance. They're just doing the original X-Wing and the original TIE Fighter, which I assume would probably be the collector's CD-ROM versions.
Yeah.
Now the question, the interesting thing is whether it would be the 94 collector CD or the 98 collector CD, because they changed.
Yes.
There's different music and slightly different graphics between those two versions.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if they do 98, because originally that was part of a 3-pack, right?
Well, no, they did release them individually, and then they also had a 3-pack.
Okay. Yeah, that will be interesting to see what.
There were 2 different 3-packs. There was a 3-pack with X-Wing, TIE Fighter, and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and then there was the X-Wing trilogy, which was X-Wing, TIE Fighter, and X-Wing Alliance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when those drop, we're certainly going to be talking about them. That's for sure. I mean, how do you feel about like the collection? So you got your hands on, or I mean, you pre-ordered Dark Forces and Dark Forces 2, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, you were impressed with what you're getting with those, like with what they included?
I wouldn't say I was impressed. I was satisfied with what they were including. And it was at a lower price point than some of the things that they had released. It was actually $10 less than like Bounty Hunter or Episode 1 Racer. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was a good value in my opinion for what they're offering. And not only that, like after X-Wing and TIE Fighter, Dark Forces and Jedi Knight are my favorite, Star Wars games. Yeah.
No, I hear that. Yeah, that's kind of why I was tempted for Jedi Academy, because under TIE Fighter, like Jedi Academy sits right there.
Yeah.
right under that is probably Racer Revenge. I love that game. So we're gonna bring Rob over. Rob and I are gonna break out the PS2. I've got to sit right here in the studio, and we're gonna jam that game at some point. Anyway, so all right. Well, these things are on their way. I will be picking up the Switch version of Racer day one when that comes out. And I'll certainly give a little bit of a review on TIE Fighter Renegades about it. So anyway, do you want to move on to our next story, Rob?
Let's do it.
All right. So this is one, like I said, we basically called an audible on because my mind was fucking blown. And this is breaking news, folks, from April 15th, 2020, from Boing Boing. And that is Yaphet Kotto. I hope I'm saying his name right.
Yaphet Kotto.
Yaphet Kotto. That's it. Thank you.
Kodo,
turned down
sorry.
the role. Kodo. Right. There we go. All right. He turned down the role of Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation back in 87. This is mind-blowing to me. Now, most people will remember him from, he wasn't Dallas. That wasn't Dallas from Alien.
No. Parker from Alien.
Right. And definitely the comic relief in the movie. He was great. This is amazing to me that he was going to be, he was kind of first choice. And Barry was right on top of this. He wanted it to happen. And wow, I mean, I can totally believe that Gene Roddenberry would absolutely have a black actor taking the lead role. And of course, Avery Brooks would in the subsequent series, Deep Space Nine. Gene Roddenberry was in control of the show at the time to where I think he could make more of this call. I gotta believe though that go ahead, Rob.
Wasn't he initially against Patrick Stewart playing the role? From what I heard?
I think I've heard that. Yep,
yeah.
I think I've heard that. Which I'm not exactly sure. I don't recall what was behind that. I mean, I got to tell you, 2 months ago, let's say, 2 months ago, if I had heard this, I would have said, well, gee, I think they made bring on Patrick Stewart. I'm glad they went with Patrick Stewart. But now I'm kind of like, no, I wouldn't have minded of seeing this. I wouldn't mind seeing this. This would have been all right. And because I mean, talk about franchise fatigue or just disillusionment. Like I'm still so disillusioned with Picard, the show. And that has seeped into my disillusionment with the actor himself. I'm still just baffled at how that flying turd got made. I just don't know.
So before we started the show, I was telling Brian how, I've been spending a lot of my time recovering some lost data on my hard drive. And one of the things that I lost was Star Trek The Next Generation. So obviously I re-downloaded that. But I needed to make room on this drive because I was running out of space. And if you would have told me, a couple of years ago that I would have, deleted a Star Trek show from my hard drive, I wouldn't have believed you. But it was an easy decision. I just wiped the card from my hard drive. It's gone because I don't plan on ever watching it again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Funny thing. I actually, just as of today, now basically have all of Star Trek on disc, Blu-ray or DVD. I had Discovery Season 1 on Blu-ray. But let me be clear here. I had Discovery Season 1 on Blu-ray. I will never, ever, I shouldn't say that, but for what it's worth, I will not buy that show again. It is fan fiction straight up. And in fact, it's a lower life form than that because I have burned Blu-rays of supposed fan fiction that Star Trek Continues and so on, which is actually great Star Trek. I hear you, man, 100%. And I'm not going to buy Picard on Blu-ray. I'm not interested. I don't give a shit.
No.
And actually,
there's another thing that came up this week too. So there's a guy's YouTube channel, and he's introducing blooper scenes into, like, editing them into the regular part of the episodes. And so using those blooper takes and then just cutting it to, like, you know, people like playing it straight afterwards.
Yeah.
And like one of the really good ones is they did one from All Good Things. And it's, you know, near the end of the episode when they're like trying to converge that spatial anomaly and the ship's about to blow up. And there's a scene where Brent Spiner is playing Data, and he's, you know, back on the console, back on the Future Enterprise E. And just as the ship is about to explode, he puts up his arm and goes, "Aye!" And that is now my headcanon for how Data died.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, man. Yeah, you know, the comparisons to like Bicentennial Man, which is a great movie, by the way, folks, if you've never, and a great story too by Isaac Asimov, but if you've never seen that movie, the comparison to like Data's death and Bicentennial Man that people have been making is very interesting as well, which is ironic because that show made fun of Asimov. But anyway.
You know, there's something else interesting on this call sheet that I just noticed.
Is that about Denise Crosby?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which Denise Crosby would play Tasha Yar, but she was originally up for, and I didn't know this either, she was up for playing Troy.
And she's the only person on the list for that character.
Yeah.
And she's not anywhere on the list for Tasha. There's a bunch of other actresses listed there for Tasha, but she's not on it.
That's, you know, it's real. I could tell. All right. It's dumb of me to say, but whatever. So I don't have to edit it later. I'm just going to say this. I could tell stories about Denise Crosby because she was very infamous on the convention circuit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. And when I was a younger man. All right, I'm just going to say this and let people read into whatever they want. It got close, and that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Now, I never heard that story before, and I'm amazed she never talked about it. I bet she has somewhere, and I just missed it. But that's incredible. Yeah, I read that too on the call sheet. But and Reggie Jackson for Geordi. I mean, like there's some interesting choices here beyond Yaphet Kotto. But I mean, let's circle back on this. How do you feel the show would have been, Rob? I mean, do you think it could have, it's hard to imagine it being a better show, but I mean, what do you think would be different about it?
I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, this is one of those instances where like, I really wish I had, like the technology that they had from that show Fringe, where you could peer into an alternate reality version
or like
of our sliders. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I just want to look at it. I wouldn't necessarily want to visit, another version of reality. Of course, no, I have to take that back because we are living in the worst possible timeline right now. So, I mean, if there's a timeline out there where Star Trek Discovery and Picard didn't happen, you might get me to jump ship from this universe.
Yeah. Take me away, Berenstein Bears. Yeah.
Yeah. Another name that stands out to me is Kevin Peter Hall. They were going to cast possibly for both Data or Geordi.
Yeah.
And he passed away, I think, shortly before they started filming this.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of those things where, like, I have, my favorite show ever, Babylon 5. Okay. And it does sit above Star Trek for me. And I've made this comment similarly before, and I don't relish in anybody's death at all. But when I was originally saddened when varying actors like Andreas Katsoulis and others would die who were in Babylon 5 and had such pivotal roles and were such tremendous actors also. Now I'm like, no, you know what? Because they can't tarnish these guys. These guys and gals, they can't tarnish them now.
Yeah.
Like at least not until CGI gets past its uncanny valley, I guess. And I hate saying that, but like there's a part of me, I don't know, that wishes the stars aligned in such a way that like Picard and some other things just couldn't have gotten made, because it's just so bad. Is Yaphet Kotto still alive? Is he? I think.
No, I think he passed away like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to say what it would be like. It would definitely be very different. I don't think we'd get the great speeches that we would have necessarily gotten. I don't know. I have a hard time picturing them getting delivered. So it would have been a different animal. That's for sure. But very, very interesting. In fact, actually, go ahead.
Maybe he is still alive. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. He's getting up there. He's like 80.
Okay. All right. Well, they could have tarnished him. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn it. Well, anyway, I mean, we were talking before we started recording. Like, this isn't the only time this has happened with Star Trek, where with Voyager originally, Genevieve Beaujour was going to play the character of Captain Janeway. It was not, totally blanking here. It was
Kate Mulgrew.
Kate Mulgrew. I was going to say Katharine Hepburn, but that's who
that would have been interesting. Whoa.
Well, Kate Mulgrew played. Yeah, well, it would have been awesome. But Kate Mulgrew played Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah.
And anyway, that and did a tremendous job. I mean, Kate Mulgrew is amazing. In fact, like, I was totally on board with the idea of her even like taking over as Princess Leia, but whatever. We'll move on from that. But Genevieve Beaujour originally was going to, and to the point that they were filming with her as Janeway in the pilot episode. Isn't that right, Rob?
Yeah. In fact, I understand it. I think they actually finished the pilot episode with her, and then they reshot the entire episode with Kate Mulgrew.
Boy, I'd love to see that footage. I mean, still,
you can find snippets of it on YouTube.
Right.
This is one of those cases where if like you wanted to peer into that alternate reality, you could go find it on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, they did right with Kate Mulgrew, and then I really can't see, other than the great look that Genevieve Beaujour brings, I can't really see anybody else doing that. That's actually.
Just on the terms of like comparing the performances, and I think the YouTube video does kind of like it shows one and then it shows the one with Kate Mulgrew. I do have to say, and this is no shade at Genevieve, but like Kate Mulgrew's performance was much stronger.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to argue against that. In fact, I want to bring up quick. Actually, recently, like I mentioned, how I have like all of Star Trek on disc, or at least all of the actual canon of Star Trek, none of the fan fiction. And the box set for Voyager, this is a lost art, man, because, and I thought this was so brilliant. And I have the box set for DS9 as well, and they didn't do this at all, because there's artwork that continues into the interior of Voyager, into the interior of the box. And the box of the complete set is more or less a cube. I mean, it's almost a perfect square, or a cube. And inside the box, the artwork goes in, and there's the shadow of the Borg Queen in the back of the box. You can't see that unless you actually take the fucking discs, like the sleeves, completely out. This was such a fanboy move, in my opinion, and I love it, because basically you have the Borg Queen in the cube. Right? Like, I mean, It's such a simple idea, but we used, people used to give that much of a shit about Star Trek.
I'd just say packaging design in general has kind of gone downhill in the last, 10, 20 years. Yeah.
Again, it's interesting because I don't think you think they would have put more thought into the Deep Space Nine packaging, right? Because that was more popular than Voyager. I think that's fair to say.
I don't know. I mean, like, I think that's true now, but back then, Deep Space Nine was really kind of like, for a long time, was the redheaded stepchild of Star Trek.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I was just, again, I thought that was such a brilliant little thing to include.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, and you've got to get it. Like, you've got to think about it for a second for it to make sense. So I thought that was really cool. But anyway, that's just an aside. So yeah, this could have been a very interesting alternate universe with a very different Captain Picard. It still would have made sense for him to be Jean-Luc Picard, because he still could have played like a black French character that I think would have been really cool.
Right.
I mean, that would have fit completely, well, anyway, yeah, I'm not sure what more to say on it. Just that could have been really, really, really interesting to check out. And, even actually in the same year in 87, we did get basically our first black captain, which was the captain at the beginning of Star Trek IV, of the Voyage Home, and a woman at that also, which I thought was great. So, well, I guess Gene got his way in some way, but somewhere.
Yeah, so, there was an Indian captain too
on
Star Trek 4.
Oh, yes. No, I do remember. Right, he's the one. He's like running out of air. He can barely breathe, and he's transmitting at the San Francisco base. Yes, I remember that. Yeah, that was. Yeah, little things like that, I think, very ahead of their time in Star Trek, and I think those were, even though I know now that in a lot of the movies Gene didn't have a lot of say, I think they tried to appease the man in the castle, and they do little things like that. That had to be his idea, because I can't picture anybody else on the production team that would have given that much of a crap.
Right. Well, I mean, you just look at the motion picture, and that whole scene where Captain Kirk is like addressing the crew of the Enterprise in that huge like hall that they have, and just the diversity in that scene alone is like highly representative, like of Star Trek.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. Well, I mean, we can think about it. It's interesting, but I guess we'll never really know what that could have looked like. I mean, there's a chance, because Next Gen was in a little bit of trouble at season 2, and maybe the show wouldn't have gone on. I mean, Best of Both Worlds saved that show. I mean, there's other great episodes in season 3, but that's what had everybody talking.
Yeah.
And then that's.
I mean, they were going through a lot of cast changes. I mean, they got rid of Dr. Crusher and brought another actress, and then they got rid of Tasha. And I mean, Star Trek kind of has history with this. Kind of the same thing with Voyager, how they got rid of Kess and brought in Seven of Nine. Yeah.
Amazing that Star Trek does keep rolling on. I mean, that's the strength of the internal consistency, the integrity. So you're right. Star Trek has a history of that, of changing up cast quite a bit, and it thrives in that too. I mean, when we got Worf on DS9, dynamite. Actually, I heard an interesting. I mean, it's rumor and innuendo, as it were, that CBS is literally hemorrhaging money on Star Trek. Like, they are in trouble. And they might have to sell off the franchise. What's that?
I said it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I can believe it. And frankly, if it happened, great, as long as Disney doesn't buy it. But great, like, somebody buys Star Trek.
Yeah,
I know. Well, that's the problem. They're the ones who'd be first in line, and they've got the money. Like, who's going to beat out Disney, for buying Star Trek? I mean, what, Fox? No, sorry. Fox fucking is owned by Disney now. It's not good. So you have to get some French company to come in, some like conglomerate. Tell you what, the EU can buy Star Trek, okay? Fuck the EU, but the EU itself can buy Star Trek, and that'll be fine. Or maybe Toho. That'd be interesting. I'd love to see that. I don't know if we'd ever get a Godzilla crossover, but that'd be interesting.
I'm trying to think of who I'd want to own Star Trek, and I'm like, I can't think of anything.
Yeah, no. There's.
I mean, at this point, just kind of want Star Trek to stop for a while.
Yeah, no, Star Trek can actually, it can take a permanent break. It doesn't have to come back at all. There's plenty to watch.
Right. That's sad, but I mean, that's just the way we feel.
Yeah, Yeah. Yeah. And what's really sad is that like this is the time where Star Trek could have been that much better than Star Wars. And it just, I mean, I'll watch Rise of Skywalker 20 times before I'll watch Picard again. I mean, are you kidding me? Like that?
Yeah, and I don't even want to watch that. But I mean, yeah, I can understand that.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, we can move on from that.
Yeah. Probably best if we
we'll
did.
just complain.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll just keep complaining. Well, why don't we get into? I mean, this is meant to be free flowing, but whatever. We've got a next conversation to get into. In fact, I just mentioned Leto II, which points at what we're going to talk about next, and that is none other than one of our top franchises of all time. Might even be Rob's favorite, but that being Dune.
It's up there.
Dune is the franchise that, well, we're going to see how well it's going to do because we have a two-parter, a two film, and we're talking theatrical release, supposed to be coming December 18th, 2020. We have not heard that this has been pushed back or canceled. This is supposed to still be happening, and they're that far along in production, at least of the first movie, to where it can. And we actually got shared in the Telegram, which you can, if you go to tiefighter.xyz, you can find a link for the Telegram group there to join it. But we got shared a link from Vanity Fair where they're doing a full expose on, or whatever you want to call it, a full feature on the upcoming Denis Villeneuve. Now, again, they made it very clear that this is getting split into two movies. And I think that's fine because really it's 3 books in one, and it literally is 3 books in one. In fact, when it first came out, it was, what did it come out? Like 6 parts in
Analog magazine.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, it was in Analog. They did split it up into 3 books in the magazines, but it was spread across, like you said, I think 6 issues.
Right. Yeah. So, it being a couple movies, I mean, I have no problem with that. Denis Villeneuve, I know Rob has a different opinion of this. I liked Blade Runner 2049. I thought that was a fine fine film, and he was behind that.
Brian likes it more than I did.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying it's a bad film, but
right.
Yeah, it's not up there for me. You have to understand, like Brian mentions, Dune being one of my favorite franchises. The other one that's really high up there is Blade Runner, and Blade Runner is one of those movies that's so damn good that I would prefer that they had left it alone. Like, I don't want any movies. I don't want comic books. I don't want like the JW or KW Jeter, or is that his name?
Yeah, KW Jeter.
Yeah, Jeter. He wrote some pretty good sequel novels, but
yes, he did.
even then, like it's just kind of like to me those are in a separate universe than the original Blade Runner movie.
Yeah, well, Jeter did weird things because he tried to bring in the Philip K. Dick novel and the movie into one universe.
Right. Yeah.
Which was, I mean, I think, and actually, I know KW Jeter. I think he's a fine writer, a great writer, actually. Even though he gets a little on the militaristic side, but he's good. I mean, he did a good job at those. I agree with you.
And he if anyone was going to do it, he was one of the people that you had sort of like the credit to do it because he was actually friends with Philip K. Dick.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Well, let me ask you this, Rob. So, I mean, we've got this movie. It's obviously got, I don't know what the budget numbers are. It's got to be having a massive budget, being brought in on it. Who's the company behind it? Oh, Warner Brothers. Okay. Well, don't let Warner Brothers get Star Trek either. But regardless, hell. Though, I mean, Warner Brothers did make Babylon 5 a thing. I have to give them that. But when you heard that Denis Villeneuve, because I don't think we've talked about this, when you heard that Denis Villeneuve was going to be behind the new Dune, how did you feel about that?
I was like cautiously optimistic and understand, like, I was more coming from being impressed with his work on the movie Arrival. Which,
this very good.
Very good film. Not only that, it was one of those films that pulled off characters doing, internal dialogue.
Right.
And you don't even really notice it or have a problem with it. Whereas most movies that did do this, including the original David Lynch version of Dune and Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, people had huge problems with this sort of internal dialogue. But this is not a criticism that gets put against Arrival, which they did it very tastefully. And so anytime somebody says like, oh, I don't want internal dialogue in my movies, I kind of point at Arrival as one of those instances where it can be done very well and very tastefully.
Yeah. And actually Arrival was one of my confidence points with Villeneuve as well, because that is a movie that can actually handle the truly alien. Right. And with Dune, when you get in the Guild Navigators and so on, I think that's exactly what you truly non-human, I should say more specifically. Or I mean, they're still, well, anyway, we don't have to get into that, but they're beyond human. That's for sure. So I felt confident about that. Yeah, same here. Like I was like, okay, no, if there's some big name director you're going to get, yeah, let's go with him. That's fine. How do you feel about it being split into two films?
I'm fine with that. In fact, like even with David Lynch's Dune, even though he took his name off of it, they did a 4-hour cut of that movie.
Yeah.
And it was there, and some places in that 4-hour cut it was a little too long, but overall, I think it was an improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. And weren't they making Dune Messiah? Didn't they have that kind of lined up? That they were going to be making two movies at a time?
I haven't heard about that. I mean, the only one that really touched Dune Messiah was, of course, the sci-fi miniseries, in which they basically combined Children of Dune and Dune Messiah into one movie or one miniseries.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, all right. Well, while I'm asking the questions of how do we feel about, I'm going to keep going down this. All right. Because we have somewhat of a cast list. In fact, kind of a notable omission is there's nobody playing Fade Roth, which I'm going to guess maybe we don't get introduced to him until the second, because I thought that was weird that they didn't have anybody listed. We know who's playing, and it's a good, in my opinion, it's a good choice. They have Dave Bautista doing Raban, which I think he's just a force on screen.
Yes.
And in the wrestling world, if you're a wrestling fan, but he is an absolute force on screen. So I thought that was a great choice, and has worked with Villeneuve before. He's in Blade Runner 2049.
Right.
How do you feel about, I think this is the biggest one. How do you feel about Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto Atreides?
I think he can do it. I think he can pull it off, especially with these pictures they showed. He's got the right look.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
I mean, like he does kind of have sort of a noble bearing to him that I buy.
Yeah, I think Oscar Isaac's a great actor. I mean, Poe Dameron's one of the somewhat better things that we've ever gotten. And I think it comes from his strength of character, or as an actor. I don't know. I looked at it and it just didn't. I mean, I don't know how you best Jürgen Prochnow. Like, you just don't, because talk about a guy that has a fucking presence, right? When he's on screen.
There's a lot of things from 84 Dune that you can't best. And I don't disagree with you.
Yeah,
maybe, and maybe it's the beard. I don't know.
Maybe that's it.
I'm a little biased, possibly.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing. Here's what concerns me is that yes, Jürgen Prochnow played him in the 84 Dune. We got William Hurt, who was kind of the only big name actor in Frank Herbert's Dune that Sci-Fi did in 2000.
You also had Susan Sarandon. Yeah.
Well, and she was in Children of Dune, not in the first miniseries.
That's true.
Right. So, I mean, you had good actors in there. I'm not saying that, but William Hurt's a great actor, and I think he totally dropped the ball in that movie. Like,
yeah.
So that's that. I think that's where my trepidation might be coming in. So I recognize Oscar Isaac's a great fucking actor, but I that doesn't mean you're gonna be able to pull off this character. So I don't know about that one. Okay, go ahead.
I'll tell you who I'm kind of more concerned about is Josh Brolin as Gurney Halleck. I don't buy that at all.
Yep, same. Same. I totally agree with you. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll keep asking you, but you're going to find the response from me is, I'm not buying anybody. Rebecca Ferguson is Lady Jessica.
Yeah, I don't really know her work, so.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I can look at Francesca Anna for 1 second.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Lady Jessica, right? Because I mean, she just oozes power and so much else. I mean, just incredible. And I don't get that at all with this character with Rebecca Ferguson. Go ahead.
Not only that, and so at the headline of this article from Vanity Fair that reading, they show a picture of the two actors playing, Paul Atreides and Jessica standing next to each other. And my first reaction to see this picture is like, wait, who is that? Like his older sister or something? Like,
oh yeah, she looks very young.
Yeah, she looks. I mean, she does not look like she's had a kid. I'm sorry.
Right. No, I totally agree with you on that. I'm just looking at it now as well. And boy, all right, let's get this in here. Those still suits. Rob's head just sunk. What do you got, man? Give it to me.
I mean, I'll just say what I said to you on Telegram earlier this week is when I saw this picture, first came thinking to my mind was, oh, Dune Motocross Edition. Because that's what these still suits look like, is they just, slapped in some, motocross, dirt biking gear on these guys. Like, especially, I mean, those gloves, they're awful.
Oh, the glove. I could buy those gloves on Amazon.
Exactly.
I mean, literally, those are simple SAP tactical gloves. I mean, like, hell, I've worn gloves like that. I hear you.
Yeah. And while I'm glad that they've got the masks and the hoods, because those were in the books, and that seems to the thing that they always leave out in these adaptations. But here again, that's just it looks like a mask that you would use, while you're driving around on a dirt bike.
Yeah,
I'm going to Photoshop a picture of a guy on a dirt bike, doing, jumping a hill or something in the background, because that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I was. I mean, let's just say it. And you're kind of. I don't know if you had said this earlier or if it was before we were recording. I think it was before we were recording, and I'll let you make the point. I mean, I'll just say this: nothing has matched the incredible look of the still suits in the '84 Dune. Nothing's come even close. Those look. Go ahead.
Nothing is matched in just the entire design of that movie. I mean, the sets, the matte paintings, the designs of the ships, and the costume design, everything in that movie is just the absolute top tier of what Hollywood is capable of, and nobody has topped it since. Nobody.
I totally agree. Star Wars isn't even that cool. There's not a thing in Return of the Jedi or Empire that matches the gorgeous look. I mean, of that. Go ahead.
You have to go backwards in time to stuff like Cleopatra and Ben-Hur to find set design and costume design this good.
Yes. I just want to praise brother. Because I totally agree. People don't get this about the 84 Dune. Like, it is such a visual spectacle, regardless of any confusion you might have with the story or anything. You have never seen anything like it before or since. And I think that still holds true for Ben-Hur, which has also had many failed remakes. I mean, Cleopatra, just one of the greatest films, if not the of all time. And I mean, but that's the only thing you can compare the 84 Dune to. Yeah. And everything I am seeing in this article is in no way inspires that kind of feeling.
No.
When people here, you got to understand, like when I was growing up, okay, and I was reading Starlog, I didn't know shit about Dune. Didn't know a damn thing. But I can remember just my eye being absolutely drawn to like, wow, that looks so cool. The design is amazing. even as a very young person. And none of this is doing that for me. To this day, I still I'll see a picture. Go ahead.
Just from the way that movie starts, where you're in the Emperor's throne room, that whole set is just a visual feast, and all the just outlandish and brilliant costume. Okay, I'm sorry. There is another movie that I think that kind of lives up to that level of kind of set design and visual design, and that was The Cell. Do you remember that movie, Brian?
Yes, with J-Lo. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was another movie that director did. I'm trying to remember well, it's not coming to right now, but he did another movie too that was at that level too. And this is the only guy really in Hollywood who I think would have been capable of pulling off a proper sort of like visual lineage from the '84 Dune.
Well, if you want, look him up quick. I'm going to tell a quick story about that to prove your point about The Cell. The first time I saw this, in my opinion, this is a fucked up movie. I'm not necessarily recommending people watch it, but just to prove, I mean, it's a very weird film. Not like the cool way, but I mean, for some people, I know it's their taste. Anyway, the first time I ever saw this, I was at a party and there was no sound and you couldn't hear shit anyway, because the party, it's a party, there's music and everything going on, whatever. I couldn't take my eyes off of the screen because what was happening was so visually gripping in that movie that even without the sound, my mind was just blown. I'm like, wow, what was going on? And I had to go. I bought the DVD afterwards. Kind of regretted that, but I will give it that. It is a visually stunning film. It really is. And J-Lo did good work, by the way.
A better movie from the same director is named Tersum Singh, or I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but from 2006, The Fall.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, boy, they should bring him on for this.
Yeah,
totally right.
No kidding.
Totally right. Well, anyway, I guess, why don't we get to, I mean, was there anybody, let's ask about Chani. You have Zendaya. I don't know who the hell that is. I apologize. That's no slight to anybody. You get a look at her. What do you got?
She was the girl playing Mary Jane Watson in the new Spider-Man movies, isn't she?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
That could be.
Yeah.
I've written off comic book movies.
I know. Yeah. I'm just for the audience's reference, I know a lot of people in our audience still watch the Marvel movies. So if you're familiar with who she is, you might recognize her from the Spider-Man movies. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I just get one look and I don't know, I'm not feeling it. As to where I remember seeing when Syfy's Dune miniseries was coming out in 2000. And I mean, as also like Rob, as a huge Blade Runner fan, I mean, Sean Young, she's dynamite. And she was dynamite as Chani in the 84 Dune. When I saw Barbara Kordakova, and I did not look that up, folks, that's how memorable she is. I thought she was tremendous as Chani. Instant look, instantly worked for me. Granted, if you watch the director's cut of Syfy's Frank Herbert's Dune, it might do some other things for you, or she might do some other things for you as well. Because wow, which actually that raises an interesting point that I'm going to write down quickly that I want to talk about. But anyway, I'm not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it with this with Zendaya as Chani.
Yeah, me either. I don't really have much to say about it. I understand that these criticisms that I'd be making, I am sort of reserving final judgment for when the movie comes out. So I'm not
sure.
I'm not against this movie like from the outset. I am going to go see this movie with the intention of enjoying it.
Yeah, same here. I'll second that. Let's bring up. This is one of the biggest stars on the list. Jason Momoa is Duncan, Idaho. What do you think?
I mean, I love Jason Momoa. Mm-hmm. I think he's a tremendous actor. Mm-hmm. And understand I liked him before he was popular because I was watching Stargate Atlantis and he was tremendous in that show.
Yeah, right.
I'm just not sure that he's Duncan, Idaho. Here again, I have to reserve judgment on this one. I'm not going for or against this one either way on this point.
Yeah, I think he has the acting chops to do anything.
Yes,
I mean, I'm
absolutely.
going to say that, no doubt there. And I loved Aquaman. That, speaking of comic book movies, that was one that stood out for me. That was worth a watch. All right. Before I say what I'm going to say, we're going to skip to the next person. And this is maybe where people are going to get, this is the controversial choice. And I think but anyway, Dr. Kynes is being played by a woman, Sharon Duncan Brewster. And, obviously, and I mean, we could dedicate this whole episode to Max von Sydow, who recently passed. That's a tough act to follow anytime you're following Max von Sydow. How do you feel about the choice of a woman being put in place for Dr. Kynes?
I don't have a huge problem with it.
Yeah,
to be honest with you. In a way, I'm almost hopeful that by doing this, they're going to maybe expand on the relationship between Chani and her now mother.
Yeah.
In this movie. Because I thought that was something that was actually really underserved both in all the movies and the miniseries and even in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm with you on that. And I'd like to see, because Frank Herbert very much, I don't disagree with the sentiment. While Dune has a lot of themes, I think one of them is like the strength of mothers, or at least to some degree of wives. I think that's kind of a point. I mean, the book literally ends with history will remember us as wives, because they were the mothers of the children that actually, you could say, mattered, right, in the universe. Mm-hmm. I'm totally on board with them having strong mothers in this movie, because Villeneuve has come out and said that he's expanded upon the character of Lady Jessica, which I have no problem with that. And if he's doing the same with Dr. Kynes, kind of like you're saying there, Rob, I'm there too. I have no problem with this actress. I have no problem with the choice. I think that's fine. Gender swapping is a popular thing in Hollywood movies right now. I understand that. This is a case where I think it could work. But this is why I mentioned this before I said what I thought about Duncan Idaho. If you're going to gender swap a character, that's the one I would have wanted. I would have loved it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I would have because when you get into the Golas and like even, I mean, this would allow for. Yes, you got it instantly, didn't you? That is my point, because we're going to get into some characters, I mean, oh boy. Yeah, I mean, that could have gone places. And you want to be trailblazing, you want to be controversial.
Yeah,
that's controversial. So I would have instantly, and I would have had no problem with it. And I would have said, absolutely. Because I mean, we'd have had an expression of bisexuality. We would have had all kinds of expressions that I just think would have been dynamite. And also, I mean, Duncan Idaho as a Gola becomes such an important character. It's something that would have stuck, and I think would have helped distinguish this movie if it becomes a movie series, the series of films. And I think it's a lost opportunity. That's if you're going to gender swap a character, that's where I would have gone. So
yeah, because I mean that plays all throughout all the rest of the books.
Exactly.
I mean, because he's the one character that is throughout the entire series. Yeah. And you might just when I said that's hot, you might be thinking I was just thinking about Alia. No, right. No.
But that is a part of it. I mean, the Alia is a part of it.
But I mean, but that would have made the love triangle and God Emperor of Doom even that much more interesting.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So missed opportunity, but Rob, maybe someday they'll let us make these movies.
I was just thinking that if only they let us make movies.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem is you let me make this movie and like the Tau Siege orgy is going to go for about 30 minutes. We're going to have to do a trilogy. I'm sorry. Oh shit!
Brian's gonna
All
bring
right.
back the steamy '80s love scenes.
Yeah. Oh baby. Like 9.5 weeks? Are you kidding me? It's gonna be 9.5 years, baby. This is gonna be awesome. Or 9.5 months, I should say. It's gonna be. All right. So to get serious again, missed opportunities, folks. I will admit, like I have to give credit. It's impossible to not, regardless if people think that the previous Dune movies are forgettable or it's just not their flavor. There's no way that this film is not going to be compared to those, because certainly the '84 Dune film, as you brought up rightfully, Rob, is, I mean, it's a masterpiece for what it is, I think, and it's a masterclass for what it is. And it's very tough, especially visually. It's very tough. Like, you're going to have to try and match that somehow. And we're not seeing that in these pictures. I have to give a lot of credit to Siffy for, I thought they did speaking of hot, I thought they did a very hot but incredibly tasteful love scene between Chani and Paul that I can't believe got on the screen. You know, like that was ballsy for Siffy at the time. And they even showed, even though you didn't see any skin, you didn't see anything like that, but they basically did pull off the Tau Siege orgy on screen, on network, or not network television, but on television, you know, on something that wasn't HBO or the Playboy channel. And I find that to be impressive as well. I don't know if I don't necessarily need to see a love scene in the movie. I'm sure we're going to get one, but I don't necessarily need to see it. But I would be intrigued if they do try to actually include that part of Fremen culture, shall we say, of what happens when they drink the water of life. Maybe they'll save it for the second film. I think that's about when it would make sense. But anyway, I wonder if they're going to try, because that's a great way to drum up some controversy. This is a book that is so well regarded, and most people, I think, even forget that orgies are a part of it. But anyway, I don't need to make a big deal out of that so much. But I think it's something that could get people talking.
The other scene that's probably really interesting in terms that would be, and the sci-fi series kind of dropped this, but the where Alia is fighting the kind of like the little drones in Dune Messiah. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That could be really visually interesting too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I don't want them to tone it down. Like, make it as adult as they fucking want, you know? And that's what I think I'm really hopeful for. And if there's anything good to come out of Game of Thrones, I hope that's it. But go ahead.
If one thing that we don't get from these movies, you know, is an attempt to market it towards kids like they did with '84 Dune, which I thought was a mistake, you know, like... And not only that, the products they came out with were not all that great. The toys were crap.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a little guy, I did have a Dune T-shirt. I remember that, with a big sandworm on it. It was red. And I remember when I rented the movie from the library for the first time. I forget exactly how old I was, but when I saw the scene with the Baron, and he's like, actually, just when I saw the Baron, I was fucking terrified. I mean, it wasn't like, ooh, that's scary, he's a villain. No, I was fucking terrified. So yeah, trying to schlep that off to children, don't bother. Which also bothers me that Brian Herbert wants to do that very thing. Yeah.
And yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, like, what we don't need are like more Dune children's books and coloring books, but you know, they've already announced those things. So, oh well.
Yep. Fan fiction gets messy, doesn't it?
Yep.
Hell. Let me look at what else we got. Now, you had said that you heard where the script is going to end, because this is going to be a two movie film, or a 2-movie story. Where did you say the first one you thought was going to end?
So from people that I've talked to who have had access to the script on Twitter, is that it ends somewhere shortly after the fight scene with Jameis, where, you know, Paul and his mother are introduced to the Fremen, and he has that duel with one of the Fremen. And I think it's somewhere around there. It might be the funeral scene. But that's what I've heard is where the first movie is going to end. So we're going to get, basically the fall of House Atreides and the introduction to the Fremen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good place to end it if that's where they're going to go, because that's when Paul really gets accepted by the Fremen, and that's where his hero's journey really, really begins, I guess you could say. The only problem is that I see is that leaves a lot of the second, to cover.
Yes.
That's my only concern there, but I think it's a fine place for that's. I still think there should be 3 movies. This should be a trilogy. It shouldn't be. I mean, I don't think Hollywood's willing to take a risk on a trilogy, especially after what happened with the Skywalker saga. But yeah. Well, anyway, how about you? What do you think about it?
If this does well, then maybe they'll go back because if we understand, they've already shot the second movie.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's already filmed. They haven't even finished working on all the post production on the first one yet. But yeah, who knows if the first movie does really well, which I mean, unfortunately at this point I'm not really hopeful of that happening, and unfortunately I don't think Dune is just one of those franchises that is met for super mass appeal. But if it did, then maybe they would go back and possibly do reshoots to expand on and make a second and third movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be okay with that if they did. But I mean, you think that's a fine ending spot overall for the first
Yeah,
one?
I mean, it's about where I think the first book ends within the novel. So
right. So an interesting thing that Villeneuve said is that he feels like now ecology is in the science of ecology, not environmentalism, but ecology is a big deal in the Dune books. There's no doubt about that. I'm not gonna argue about that.
I mean, there's a whole appendix on it.
Exactly. Right. And Dr. Kynes is always thinking about how his dad is talking about this plant and that. And I mean, it's a big deal. Anyway, Villeneuve, though, seems to have this interpretation that I never really got. In fact, I'll read here from the Vanity Fair piece quick. For Villeneuve, this 55-year-old story about a planet being mined to death was not merely a space adventure, but a prophecy. Quote, no matter what you believe, Earth is changing and we will have to adapt, end quote, he says. Quote, that's why I think that Dune, this book, was written in the 20th century. It was a distant portrait of the reality of the oil and the capitalism and the exploitation, the overexploitation of Earth. Today, things are just worse. It's a coming-of-age story, but also a call for action for the youth. Now, I read Dune when I was a teenager. That was the first time I ever read it. And when I really got the book, when I got the movie, when I understood the movie was also as a teenager, I never got that out of Dune.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and it doesn't make the sense that Arrakis is being mined to death, because that's fucking silly. I mean,
yeah, no, because the spice gets produced all the time.
The sandworms produce the spice, and they fucking own that planet.
Yeah, nobody can kill the sandworms.
Well, I mean, they do eventually, but it's a very, very slow process, and it wouldn't be something that you would say is destroying the planet.
Right.
In fact, they even theorize within the books that the sandworms are a foreign organism to the plant,
right?
To Arrakis, and that the sandworms themselves destroyed the original ecology.
Yeah, exactly. So that there is throughout the Dune series of books, and even in the first book, there is a certain respect the ecology of whatever planet you happen to be on. I think that is there. You can extrapolate that, but the idea that Arrakis is being strip mined, fuck no. That's not happening at all. That's
a stretch. And it is true that Frank Herbert did take inspirations from things whereas CHOAM is basically OPEC. There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But Dune is not an allegory that they're implying here.
Right. I mean, not to say that Frank Herbert wouldn't write about that, because he did write The Green Brain, which is about that is about these sorts of things. So I wouldn't argue with Villeneuve if he was making a movie of The Green Brain, but that's not Dune. I thought this was weird, and this is where maybe somehow he got the green light. It's like, well, I'll put in this message. I mean, and look, I have very real concerns about Earth's ecology. I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I'm just saying that that's not Dune. Like, and that worries me a little bit, because it's like, you pulled that out of your ass. That's not in the book. But yeah, I think what you're bringing up about Chom and so on is interesting.
Anything, like the entirety of the Dune saga is really a message about how much control we have as species over our environment, right, and how we have the power to change it to fit our purposes. And that's definitely not the message they're sending here with what you're describing in this article.
Yeah, I mean, like I cannot think of where you could get that interpretation. I think he really probably, this is how he sold it to get this script going. Is that he had to get, I mean, because I think Hollywood has certain messages, they love their word hope and unite. They have certain messages that they want to get out there for whatever fucking reason. I don't know what it is. And I just feel like this is one of the boxes that he had to check, and get it out there. So I don't know. We'll see how big of a deal that makes.
Yeah.
But I do worry that he is dramatically misunderstood, what the book's about. But okay, I mean, again, it does have multiple themes. I admit that. I said that earlier, but this isn't one of them. So
it's going to be interesting for the people who haven't read the books, how they're going to end up, how this modern interpretation is going to be read, because you're certainly going to have a crowd who is going to take issue with the whole white savior.
Oh yeah,
part of it,
Yeah.
Whereas if you actually read the books, that's the farthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, it's actually starkly the opposite.
Yeah. It's funny too, because I've read reviews from people who talk about the movie and they're like, oh, it's, like the 84 Dune. And they're like, we don't know why this movie's a big deal. It's classic white savior shit. It's like, no, you don't know the rest of the story. You don't know how this goes. This is not good. But anyway, so if I've seen some merchandising deals for even like board games for this that I'm excited about. And frankly, if I get a remake of Dune 2000 or Dune 2, and I don't have to play the gun mod edition of Dune 2000 anymore or whatever, like, I'm okay with that kind of becoming a thing. If we get that sort of stuff out of this,
I kind of doubt.
How about you? You
don't
doubt it?
Yeah, no, I in fact, I'll try to include it in the show notes, but somebody did actually kind of a retrospective on the Dune games just here recently. Mm-hmm. And it's been confirmed now that the reason that we haven't gotten a re-release of any of the previous Dune games, including the original Cryo game and Dune 2 and Dune 2000 and Emperor Battle for Dune, the reason that we haven't gotten any of those on GOG, and they've tried, but the Herbert family trust or estate or whatever you want to call it came and said, and I quote, "Those are old. They should stay old."
What? That's Brian Herbert. That fucker.
Oh yeah. That's the whole family. It's that whole family.
Fuck that. God damn it. I mean, folks, you got to understand. The emotional reaction is because these games are awesome. I mean, don't play the PlayStation version of Dune 2000. That was very weird. It had this weird 3D like effect. The rest of Dune 2 basically created the RTS genre. I mean, these are tremendous games. That is such bullshit. I wonder.
It's not just the games either. I mean, right. I really have a beef with this with the Herbert estate. Another thing that they've done is like all the just phenomenal artwork by John Schoenherr, that you see on the original covers and stuff, is that they won't they won't allow anybody to make prints or posters or anything with any of his art on modern day, and apparently the reason this isn't happening is because pretty much the Herbert, disparate members of the Herbert family, they all own the original paintings from all the Dune books now and stuff, and they're hanging up on their walls, and that's kind of like their private little thing to enjoy. It's not for the rest of the world.
That's so ridiculous. And there's a part I can't believe Frank Herbert would have been on board with all that.
Oh, there's so much Frank Herbert wouldn't be on board with. I mean,
yeah,
we wouldn't have Mick Dune for one.
Yeah. Fucking A. I mean, because you can read, you can get more of Herbert's philosophy when you read, a lot of Hellstrom's Hive, The White Plague. I mean, there's a lot of books out there that explore more of, I think, what Herbert thought about things. This is crazy. That's so, especially that reason. It's old. It should stay buried, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that.
Yep.
No,
yep.
It's old. That's why it's great. Because
this is why you won't get a republication of one of the rarest and hard to get Dune books ever, the Dune Encyclopedia. Yeah. Oh, they wish with a burning passion for that book to die.
Oh yeah. And folks, go ahead and download. Yeah, because it contradicts what Brian Herbert has written. In a lot of things, and there's much more.
They don't even need to be that. I mean, even Frank Herbert in the introduction to that book said that he would keep his own counsel onto whether or not any of this stuff was true, and it says right at the beginning in the book that this is not canon.
Right, and rightfully so for Frank Herbert to say that. Yeah, that's out there available, folks, to download the PDF of even, and go ahead and have it just to be a thorn in the side to these people, because that's terrible. So I didn't know that. I'll have to, get that. Let's get that retrospective in the show notes, because, man, I need some more rage porn in my life. Because that's what that's going to be. I love those games with a passion. It's one of the first things I install anytime I'm bringing up a machine.
Dune 2, just from, in terms of the historical importance of that game, mm-hmm. It is pretty much recognized as the first RTS. Yes, there was some other games that had elements of the RTS genre, but Dune 2 is the one that really codified it and made it what it is.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Oh man, that's so crazy. Well, frankly, I can't believe they're letting this movie get made. In fact, now I'm kind of wondering if Brian Herbert wants this environmental friendly message to be included in the film, and that has to be there.
I would be surprised. I mean, he and Kevin J. Anderson have basically been trying to rewrite Dune history for the last 20 years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is another franchise where it's playing into this. I mean, kind of with Star Wars, certainly with Star Trek, where it's okay, what came before was canon. They're just fucking it up now as they go along. I mean, and this sort of thing, this isn't a new idea either. It's basically what I'm suggesting is if you want to read Dune, read the first 6 books, and then, what the original Dune 7 was is just going to be a mystery for all time.
Yeah, don't buy into this crap that Frank Herbert left some floppy disks with the Dune 2 or with the Dune 7 outline in. I don't buy that for a second. If it was true, then they should publish it. Publish the notes.
I mean, right. Make it an heirloom edition. Sell it for $5,000, and you'll have people that'll buy it. I guarantee you that. If you did too, you'll do good money on that one. But they won't do that because it's shit.
They've changed the story on that so many times that it just it makes it's completely incredulous. First they said they found it in a safe deposit box, and then they said they found the notes up in Brian in their parents' attic, and it just keeps changing. So I don't believe for a second anything those two con men have to say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and just to be clear, this idea that there's parts of a franchise that are canon or that like people, even when something else, the example I'm going to give you so you understand, Sherlock Holmes. Okay. There is what's known as the original canon in Sherlock Holmes. And then there are books, other stories written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself that exist outside of that. We know for a fact that he did those for the money, the extra ones. And they are nowhere near as well thought out or as brilliant as what he did with the original canon. And so you have a lot of people, like usually when you buy a complete Sherlock Holmes set, and there's plenty of those other works by Doyle aren't in there because most people are like, okay, we know what those were, and it doesn't matter. And that's really it. That's the same way I think to treat anything not by Frank Herbert in the Dune saga is, it's a money grab. It's not the canon, No. And
I mean, and as much as I love the games too, the games have their own basically storyline that's like has nothing to do with the books. You can still enjoy those things, but it's like this is the final word on it as far as I'm concerned. There are 6 books, and they were written by Frank. That's it.
Yeah, that's the end of it. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that, 100%. So, but the movie, well, we'll see. I mean, that's also why I've given the 84 Dune a little more credibility over time, is because, well, Frank Herbert was fucking there. And he had some say in what was put on screen, I'm sure, or he had some input at least. But anyway, so, well, we will be keeping an eye on the Dune production and release as it comes out, because again, for Rob and I, this is one of our top franchises. And certainly we were happy to talk about it on TIE Fighter Renegades. Again, I mean, this story got shared in the Telegram group. So I take that as impetus. Hey guys, talk about this. So we have, all right. Well, do you have anything else on Dune you want to talk about, Rob, or we can move on to our recommendations?
No, I had my, my 2 cents put on old Brian Herbert and the hack who shall not be named. So I feel, Yeah,
fair enough. All right. Well, so why don't we get into our recommendations? Then we'll wrap this show up. You want to start off with yours, Rob? This is a doozy we were talking about just offhand before we started recording. Go for it.
Yeah. So I mentioned, when Ryan and we were talking before, that I'd unfortunately had a hard drive failure and lost the hard drive where I had all my TV shows were stored, and I was fortunately able to recover most of it. But one of the things that I unfortunately lost the first disc of was a television show back in the 90s called American Gothic. And boy, is this show deep. And it has, if you like when Brian talks about, stuff to do with the occult or, they, those, them, or the devil, this is definitely the show for you. And sadly it only lasted 1 season, and it's kind of hard to find these days. There was a DVD release, so you can get it that way, but as far as finding it online, there are a few episodes up on YouTube, but finding it in its entirety is somewhat difficult now. But if you can get a hold of it, it is worth it.
Yeah, I will second that all the way. Because I watched the show when it came out. I was very familiar with the guy who's playing the sheriff in town. Don't let that dissuade you, folks. The show it works on so many levels. Gary Cole was amazing. He would actually go on to play a major part in the Babylon 5 universe, and did very well there as well. I love this show. I totally second. Go ahead, Rob.
And getting those TPS reports.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're a fan of Office Space, you also know who Gary Cole is. Yeah, well said. Yeah, this is a really clever show. In the 90s, we had so much experimentation with shows, and this is one of those experiments, and one of the better ones, I think, even though a lot of them I think were great. And you got to be careful, because CBS did a show called American Gothic that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Was this a Fox show? I thought it was.
I don't know.
ABC.
I think I think it was one of the big 3. And I think it was started in 2016. But yeah, it has nothing to do with the show from the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. And so be careful which one you think you're getting. Definitely look for Gary Cole, and boy, does he deliver. You're going to learn to scream out the name Caleb a lot. So we'll just put it that way. Yeah. Tremendous pick, Rob. I totally recommend that as well. I guess we'll get into my pick, which I'll actually be doing somewhat of a review on this in an upcoming Sovryn Tech during a climax. So you're going to want to check this out ahead of time. Another one that's a little hard to get your hands on. In fact, I do have the DVDs of this, or the DVD of this specific. And I'll make this history very, very short, but I do have the DVD of this. But it's so funny because when you get the DVD, you find out it's this like Warner Archive collection or some shit. And basically when you order it on Amazon makes a copy right then. Like they don't keep them in stock. And this DVD, when you put it into your player, there's no menu. Like there's nothing. It just goes straight. And I mean, it's like that. But this is from 1973, and it was a TV. It was supposed to be a TV series. Ended up only being a pilot by Gene Roddenberry, called Genesis 2. And
I remember this one. Yeah. So this is really, really interesting for a few reasons. But it stars Alex Cord, who would probably be most famous for being on another tremendous show, that being Airwolf, which is kind of fitting, but I won't say why. He played Archangel on Airwolf. Anyway, he does a pretty good job in this, playing a character named Dylan Hunt. Now, you might recognize that name as the character that Kevin Sorbo played in Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda in the 90s, but this is a completely different character. As far as that goes. Anyway, it takes place in the year like 2153, and Dylan Hunt, this character, ends up getting frozen in time. It's very much, or frozen in the 70s. It's very much a kind of a Buck Rogers style story where he ends up hundreds of years in the future. And when he ends up in the future, like there's been this World War III, and the Earth is kind of repairing itself, and there's some humans who have survived. And they've tried to keep the best of previous civilizations and, kind of keep them alive in the 22nd century. And their villains are the Tyranians, which are like these mutants that have two belly buttons and all this. Pretty wild. But this is pure it looks like it's from 1973, but it's pure Gene Roddenberry getting out the wildest of ideas that I guarantee you will never see in any movie or any show today. They wouldn't even dream of touching how unconventional the ideas. There was a sequel movie made called Planet Earth. That's actually what I'm going to review in Sovryn Tech. But they got rid of Alex Cord and they brought in John Saxon, of course, of Enter the Dragon fame for that. The really interesting thing here, I think that's worth checking out. And in fact, they even hint at it on the back of the DVD, if you buy the official DVD. I think this was, as great a show as Enterprise was, okay, I think this was originally Gene Roddenberry's vision of what the 22nd century looked like in Star Trek. And I think we would have found, if this became a show, that eventually it would have tied into Star Trek, that this group of humans that survive and are kind of the stars of Genesis 2, that they would have been the ones that ended up like founding the Federation, connecting with the Vulcans and so on. I mean, it's really, really great stuff. And you get more of Majel Barrett's in this. Another great actor to be involved is Ted Cassidy, which if you remember him, he played Lurch in the original Addams Family. And it's fun to see him playing like a more of a straight role. It's just a lot of fun. And again, pure 70s, but it's amazing what he got away with, what ideas he got away with putting in this, that I just don't think you could get away with putting on celluloid today or in digital or whatever. So yeah, I totally recommend this. Genesis 2, fairly rare. You might be able to find it on the public library, but I know you can buy the DVDs if you want. You're just gonna have to wait a little bit because they print to order with these classics. Did you ever see Genesis? Long time ago. I'll have to do a rewatch because I only remember impressions. I watched it when I was a kid. I think it was on, like daytime TV at some point.
Yeah, because this would get syndicated like the Quester tapes and some others. It's
right.
It's really worth checking out. Yeah. There's my recommendation for this episode of TIE Fighter Renegades. I think we can wrap this one up, Rob.
Yeah.
So anyway, of course, go to tiefighter.xyz to listen. And, well, you don't really get to view, but, there's videos there. It's a YouTube channel. You can check it out there. And the feed is also, if you go to sovereigntech.com, you can get in the podcast feed there. But that'll be it for this episode of TIE Fighter Renegades. And we'll be back soon. See all of you on the other side.